Barbara, do you remember your first thought about golf? How old were you when golf entered your mind?
Well, I had a lot of other sports before golf. I was a swimmer, and then I played tennis, and then I married a golfer. Okay, so that's because I like all sports. So I thought that would be great, golf. But uh, my husband is an excellent player.
Yes.
But he is not a teacher. And I think you have the same gift like you do in announcing, and he did not have the gift of teaching. And I always said Harvey Penick saved my marriage and my golf game.
Well, Harvey is responsible for a lot of great joys in people's
he
lives.
is.
And we're gonna talk at length about him and his impact on you. Did marrying a golfer make you fall in love with the game more because you shared it together?
Yes, I loved golf, but I loved every sport I'd been in. But when I was in golf, I really think I loved it more than any. I love the individual, the freedom to practice, to play with different people, meet people, and I just love that aspect of it.
I asked you about where golf came into your mind. How about when Harvey came into your life? Do you remember your first interaction with him?
Yes, I do. I'll never forget it. When I decided, he was at the old Austin Country Club years and years ago, and so I knew that I wanted to play because I wanted to play with my husband. So I went to Harvey, and because he was the pro there then, and I asked him if I could take some lessons. And he said, yes, Barbara, but you know, you could only have one teacher at a time. And I think he knew what was happening. He said, that doesn't mean you can't go to another teacher and another teacher, but not at the same time. I said, oh, that's wonderful. I just stay right here, Harvey. As I see why, later years, I could see why that was so important.
He is, there's so many things about him, including his efficiency with words. He was not someone who was going to wear you out with soliloquy or filibustering on one thing or the other. Why do you think his teaching was so effective?
I think he helped people mentally as well as physically. He said things, even Tom Kite said he was a psychiatrist before his time because he taught that way. And I'll never forget something when I started playing and or any small tournaments, and he always said, a player that hits it, don't worry about anyone that hits it a lot farther than you do. He said, what determines the score is who gets in that hole first. So it was, he taught you to enjoy golf without the intimidation that everyone feels when they take up golf.
As somebody who has done a lot of teaching yourself, what do you think it is about someone's personality that allows them to work with so many different personalities, different levels of ambition and goals and ability? Why do you think it is that you were inclined to want to do that, and why do you think he was?
I think he loved teaching, and you know, he didn't have a teaching certificate,
Right.
But the teaching, he loved it, and I think he adjusted his teaching to the type of personality he was teaching. I mean, look at Tom Kite and Ben Crenshaw, two different approaches to the game, and that happened that's why I learned from listening to him that he told different things to different people, so he adjusted his teaching, I think, to the personality of the person he was teaching. And I thought that was amazing, because I always thought, oh, you teach people the same thing, but he didn't. It was in different words, and they were just, I could understand why he appealed to so many different people. And everyone you talk to that has ever taken a lesson from him will have a story for you. And
You said something to me earlier that I want you to share, and that was how he never accentuated negatives or things that you failed at. You would even appeal to him to say,
tell me what I did.
Tell me what I did wrong.
Right.
But he never would.
He never would. And you know, when you think about later in life, you should look at it the same way. Right. What can you do about that missed shot? And he always, whenever I asked him what I did wrong, he would say, why do you want to know? So I won't do it again. Why don't you do what I ask you to do? Then you won't do it again. And he never spoke in long teaching. It was, what he said was just, everything was so right to the point. And I remember another lesson he gave me when, this is after I'd been playing a lot, and I kept saying, I said, Harvey, I'm hitting behind the ball. I'm hitting behind. What am I doing? He said, he told me a couple of things, and I said, what am I doing wrong? And he told me, and I said, I still hit behind it. He said, well, and he told me something else. I still hit behind it. And finally he said, Barbara, I want you to go home, and I want you to take your club, and when you could clip an exact spot down there, clip that grass, come back for your lesson. I mean, how many people would say, go home and go back for your lesson? Well, that's what I did. And finally I came back and I said, I'm ready, I can do it. And then after I did, of course, I hit it fine. And I said, what is the story, Harvey? What did you do to me? He said, you'd been reading too many books and you'd been listening to too many people, Barbara.
Wow.
He said, you have to think, you can only think one thought.
So everything changes.
Yes.
Whether it's how we communicate, how we exercise, what we eat. We can be much more well informed if we choose to be. And the point I'm driving at is, kids change, teaching changes. What was it about the things that he imparted upon people that seemed so transferable from 1950 to 2000? How was that possible?
We've even talked about what we've asked. In fact, I probably have talked to Tom or Ben or another teacher, any other one of these he's taught. And I think the difference is we wondered about all the technology that we have now.
Yes.
And yet the good players we had then, is it so no matter what kind of technology you have, you'll adjust to what you need. And I think he was so excellent at the different ways he said things to different people.
Yes.
And I think we asked, well, we have the video now. What would Harvey do? Would he have done the same thing? And they said, when I've asked that opinion, has said, I'll bet he would have shown people what they're doing right. I bet he wouldn't have shown them what they're doing wrong. And I thought, that's perfect. That's the same way he taught about, you can't think about negative things.
Right.
And so he was a positive approach to everything.
You were a very high achiever as a player. I know that you're going to say modestly whatever, but whether it was working with you, obviously you worked with multiple Hall of Fame players. But he also worked with people at Austin Country Club who were just trying to find joy in the game.
Yes.
Do you think that he found as much joy, regardless of the ability or talent level of the student that he was working with?
I think he loved it. I don't think
he loved it all. It didn't matter.
I think he loved it all. And I'll never forget when he had a funeral, and I looked at all the people there, and I know they all felt they had been special to him. I mean, he was that kind of person. They felt he had personally helped them. And it was, and no one really knew that at the time, how great he was. And but when you look back on it, you think, oh my goodness, he was a lesson in life as well as your golf game.
Absolutely.
And the appeal that he had to everyone. And he told one man he was teaching, and he asked, I was standing out there, I just happened to hear him, and he hit a few balls that Harvey said, well, how often do you play? And the man said, about once every 2 weeks. And Harvey said, well, I think you're hitting it about as well as you can if that's all you get to play. And that was the end of the lesson.
Right, right.
But and I wonder how many teachers would tell someone to go home and practice a certain thing, then come back and tell him if I have it right.
Right.
And he did the same thing when he taught people the grip, which the grip was so important to him.
Yes.
And when I remember trying it, he said, why don't you go home, Barbara, when you could place your hand on the club correctly, come back for your lesson. So I said, okay, I will. But so he taught that way to make you want to improve yourself. And so that was you could hardly, I'll tell you one funny story about him. When I walked in after I played, he said, well, how did you play, Barbara? And I said, I scuffed it on number one and I shanked it. He said, no, Barbara, I just want to hear about your good shots. Well, I teased him later and I said, they're shorter stories is why you want to hear those good shots, Harvey. But that was another lesson in life again. a lesson about golf. Why were those shots are gone?
Well, that gets to something that I think is part of, it can be, if the teacher is a good teacher. You mentioned, psychology and psychiatry, and people finding the positives and accentuating those positive things. That, to me, is as much of an achievement for an instructor to say, no, what did you do well?
Yes.
What in turn will motivate you to come back tomorrow?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's so true.
Yeah.
Why think about negative ever?
No question.
Right.
Tom Kite, you mentioned his name earlier.
Yes.
You taught him.
Well,
to a degree.
He was on my junior high golf team.
He was on your junior high golf team. Okay,
Right.
so a young Tom Kite, who from every account that I've ever read or heard was very fastidious. He was put together. He had a plan.
Right.
Clearly, that never changed because his career was truly the embodiment of having a plan and going out and executing that plan. What do you remember about a junior high school Tom Kite?
I remember he's still friends with all the people who was on that junior high
Well,
golf
that
team.
says
They've
a
all
lot.
grown up and they've been friends forever. And that alone tells you something about it in his plan forever. And I remember when he finally won his first national tournament. You remember they always said his name, Tom Kite, but he's never won a national tournament. Tom Kite, blah blah.
Right.
And then when he won it, that had to be his goal. He knew he was going to win it, no matter what.
He was so close.
Absolutely.
So often.
Absolutely.
As far as this place, Austin Country Club, as somebody who's been a member here for more than 50 years,
Yes.
why do you think this place is what it is?
I think Harvey set the foundation of the club, and what it meant, and the members that moved with it has carried that on with them, the foundation that we had always. And so I think that's what meant so much to this club. They still quote Harvey. I mean, they still talk about him, and it's just still a part of it, of the growth of the club. And I think that had to do with Harvey and Tom and Ben and Davis Love, Sandra Palmer, Mark, all those great players have come with history of working with Harvey.
The culture of this place, it's great if you have kids who become really good golfers. To me, the greatest testament is kids who become lovers of golf. And that is a byproduct of the environment. So all these generations, like Tom Kite growing up with kids who he's still friends with today, and kids here who become members of this place, isn't that a reflection of golf being so redeemable that they make it a part of their lives?
Absolutely, you're so right. Yes, and to think that since junior high school, they were on my golf team too. Since junior high school, we still know them and still in our background, knowing that that's part of it.
Right.
So that I'm sure some other clubs have perhaps achieved the same thing, but this one has really had the growth or maintained what you're talking about, what you've asked. They've maintained it throughout its growth. They won't. There's statues out there to remind you.
Yes, there are. One of the other things is managing the expectations of a student, and Harvey working with so many people. But particularly, I want to ask you about the dynamic of working with kids whose parents also have ambition for that kid. And that's not easy. And it certainly changed a lot since he's been gone. But it doesn't mean that it wasn't challenging then. What do you think made him so effective at managing the relationship of working with kids who you want first to find joy in the game, but then also the parents whose expectations may exceed what is realistic? How was he so effective at that?
I wonder about that. I don't know how he handled that, but every child that did grow and loved golf, he must have been a part of their love of it. because you can't teach a child to love something they don't want to love. And I think he gave that inspiration to kids.
Mm.
And the parents, I don't know how he managed this, except there were never parents that were overbearing.
Mm.
Now, they loved their child. They'll see that they had lessons. They'll see they had their clubs. They'll see everything. But I don't think they were ever overbearing. And I knew Tom Kite's parents, and I knew Crenshaw's.
Right.
So I knew they weren't. I really didn't know any parents that were. I know Sandra Palmer was a student as well.
Yes.
And she came here, and I don't know. I never knew how her parents. I'm not sure, but she came here and stayed here to learn from him, and
Right.
I'm not sure how that related to parents. But he must have had something we didn't know, because I never saw a parent that was overbearing.
Mm.
I did see one or two, but I wouldn't mention who it was.
Sure.
But I also saw them. Either they didn't continue the game, or they continued it without their parents.
Right.
One of the two.
Sure. To have a club that is celebrating 125 years,
Yes.
and over the course of 3 different sites, and coincidentally, now just hiring a 4th golf professional
Right.
in the history
Right.
of the club.
Right.
What does that say?
To be a part of it, I think everyone who is here or in it, and to bring more golf pros into it, I think they all feel like the members that have had this experience belong and want to preserve it.
Mm.
And then anyone that's coming in, they will teach them. They will learn it too, somehow, and they'll learn it and feel the same way with the importance
Sure.
of it, because they can feel the feeling of the members and the golfers that have that feeling of being a part of it forever, and they
Sure.
pass that on to their juniors, that same loyalty.
I mentioned earlier about you and your husband both being very good, very accomplished players. What about the things that are most redeemable for you? Your life investing in golf, emotionally and intellectually, and to a degree, I'm sure, spiritually.
Yes.
What has been so redeemable about having the game as such a big part of your life?
I know if it hadn't been for Harvey, okay, I wouldn't be the teacher that I enjoyed. I love teaching golf. I love what I do. I love to be around it. I think the lessons he taught me that have helped me become a better teacher.
Mm.
And it's not easy because you want to tell people what they're doing wrong before they do it. And I'm trying, and it's difficult. It's difficult not to tell someone what they're doing wrong.
Sure.
It's hard. And I sit back and I think, thank you, Harvey. I won't do that, but I want to. It's difficult not to say, you did this, so I want you to do this. Why not just do this? Do this. And I also read a psychology of a teacher one time. No, maybe, I can't remember what it was, but anyway, about using the word you, that you only use the word you. And I think of Harvey, and I remember this. He never used the word you unless he would say, your grip looks very good.
Wow.
Your backswing was fine. The funniest thing he ever said to me negatively was, Barbara, why don't you use one of those pretty backswings instead of both of them? And that was negative. That's the most negative thing he's ever said, and I just died laughing.
Right,
He
right.
said, yes, this one's pretty. So's that one, but let's just use that one. And I thought that's such a message in anything. And I read it later about, instead of a child in school, if you want to say, you didn't put your name down on your paper, why not say, come here, there's not a name on this paper. And when I thought of that, I thought of Harvey.
Wow.
Because he didn't use that word you unless it was a complimentary thing.
Mm.
And that's a lesson in relationships.
Absolutely.
With children as well.
No question.
And adults. And I still think of that in teaching, and it's not easy. So that's when I realized how great he was to be able to do that,
Right.
because it's not easy.
No, it isn't. Last thing, for someone who came to Austin Country Club when he was 10 years old to caddy, became the head golf professional when he was 19, which is something that is not likely to ever happen again anywhere, to entrust the stewardship of the head golf professional position to a 19-year-old, to then devote his life to serving this club, and for this club to be celebrating their 125th anniversary. What do you think about all of that would give him the most joy?
I think seeing that people continue to love what they do, or to continue to love golf, to get more out of it, from just tournament golf, but just playing golf and the relationships you build through it. So it's life lessons. That's what he gave all of us, and we want to enjoy it. I mean, to think that he was a golf pro at 19, you couldn't see that today. That could never happen. So that in itself was such an unbelievable accomplishment.
Thank you for sharing. Thanks for
Yes.
being here. Thanks for doing this, and thanks for being a credit to the game.
Yeah, well, and to this day, whenever I talk to anyone, anywhere, who's had a lesson with Harvey, I'll say, tell me about it. I want to hear about it, what he said to you. So, and they're always different. But thank you so much, and thank you for what you all do for golf, and what you all do for the Golf Channel. And that's why that's why I'm addicted to the Golf Channel. My husband, I click on CNS, then I get over there to the Golf Channel.
Well, thank you.
But you all do the same thing.
Thanks so much. Excellent, Barbara. Thank you.
I had no idea we were going to do this. You didn't fill me in on that. He just said he needed a little chat. I thought we were going to chat over there at the table. And all this stuff comes roaring in here.
It worked
and I
out
said,
great.
Wait a minute. I even asked the darling lady, I said, well, see if he's in the other room. I'm here and he may not be here. I thought it was just him, period. What a trick.
I'm so glad we didn't give you full disclosure.
I would have talked better, and I know it was. I would have thought.
You were great.
No,
Are you kidding?
Wasn't. No, I wasn't. Well, let me tell you one more quick thing. What Harvey said when I asked him for this book, to give me a quote. Here, this one. I just read it again today. If every golfer would read this book, it would make the golf professional's job a lot easier. Because of making people play faster.
Yes.
And Darrell Royal, you remember stories
absolutely.
on him? You remember how his team, they take 4 carts for 4 of them because they played fast. And I asked Darrell for one 2 years ago, and he said, are you going to make people play fast, Barbara? I said, I promise, Darrell. Okay, I'll give you a quote, he said. Because that's all he cared about was getting around in a hurry. He would take 4 carts out at Austin Country Club because they wanted to play fast. Yeah, he had other things to do, so he had to play fast. Wow. But what a life, right?
No question.
Well,
you want to play golf fast.
Well.
Where are you headed to next? Do you know?
I think we're still in here.
Still
There
in here.
should be 3 interviews in here.
Okay.
Oh, who do you have? What do you have in bed and talk?
That's at 6:30 tonight.
Oh, I've got to be back for that.
Yep.
Well, thank you, and I'm so
Thank
happy to
you.
meet you. And
You too.
I still watch Martin Hall,
Oh, gosh,
and
yeah. My man Martin.
he still uses Harvey stuff.
He does.
You hear him talk